You've been watching rain fall outside for 2 straight days. You're bored, restless, maybe even a little annoyed. But you're also sitting under a solid roof. Your clothes are dry. The room is warm. There's food in the kitchen, clean water in the faucet, and enough entertainment on your phone to last a lifetime. Now, take all of that away. No house, no heater, no waterproof coat, no grocery store. Not even a reliable way to start a fire. You're standing in a prehistoric forest thousands of years ago, and the rain hasn't stopped in weeks. The ground has turned to mud. Every branch is soaked. The wind is getting colder, and daylight is disappearing fast. This isn't a camping trip. Nobody's coming to rescue you. So, how did ancient humans survive weather that could overwhelm most of us in a single night? The answer wasn't one magical invention. It was an entire survival system, built from fire, shelter, clothing, observation, and something even more important, other people. And once you see how sophisticated that system really was, you'll never look at our ancestors the same way again. Quick question before we jump in. Would you last 1 week in this world? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden side of human history, hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and there's a lot more coming. All right, let's begin with the first thing rain tries to steal from you: heat. Most people imagine that freezing temperatures are the real danger, but you don't need snow or ice to develop hypothermia. You only need cold air, some wind, and wet skin. Water pulls heat away from the body far more efficiently than air. That means a cool, rainy day can become deadly surprisingly fast, especially when you're tired, hungry, and unable to change into dry clothes. Ancient humans didn't understand the physics behind this, but they understood the result. They had seen what happened when someone stayed wet for too long. Shivering became weakness. Weakness became confusion. And eventually, the person stopped moving. So their first priority wasn't always hunting. It was protecting body heat. And the most powerful tool they had was fire. Of course, keeping a fire alive during heavy rain is much harder than it sounds. Wet tinder doesn't catch easily. Damp branches produce smoke instead of heat. And one badly placed shelter can allow a sudden downpour to erase hours of work. That's why fire wasn't treated like something you casually made at the end of the day. It was treated like a resource that had to stay alive. Hot coals could be buried beneath ash to slow their burning. Glowing embers could be wrapped in bark, fungus, or other materials and carried while the group traveled. When the weather became dangerous, someone had to watch the hearth, feed it, and protect it from wind and water. Losing the fire didn't just mean losing comfort, it could mean losing tomorrow. But even a carefully maintained fire needed protection. And that brings us to shelter. Forget the old image of every prehistoric family living inside a convenient cave. Caves could be useful, but they weren't everywhere. Some were damp, some were dangerous, and some were already occupied by animals that had no interest in sharing. Most groups had to work with whatever the landscape provided. They leaned branches together to create a frame. They placed leaves, grass, bark, and animal hides over the top. More importantly, they learned to arrange those materials in overlapping layers. That allowed rain to flow down and away instead of dripping inside. It sounds simple now, but simple solutions become obvious only after somebody discovers them. A shelter also had to breathe. If it trapped too much smoke, the people inside couldn't stay there. If it had too many openings, wind carried away the heat. If it stood in the wrong place, water could flood it from below. Building it was only half the challenge. Choosing the location mattered just as much. A shallow hollow might look comfortable during the day, but it could fill with cold water at night. A small rise drained faster. A thick tree canopy reduced the amount of rain reaching the ground. A rock overhang offered a ready-made roof. Slopes facing the sun could warm and dry sooner after a storm. Ancient humans didn't need written engineering manuals to understand any of this. They had something more immediate: consequences. Choose correctly and your family stays warm. Choose badly and everyone wakes up in freezing mud. Over generations, groups built detailed mental maps of their environment. They remembered which camps remained dry, where firewood could be found, and which paths became dangerous during floods. The landscape wasn't empty wilderness to them. It was a library, and they knew how to read it. They also read the sky. Modern people usually learn about approaching rain from an app. Ancient people had to notice the signs around them. A shift in wind, a change in cloud shape, birds moving differently, insects appearing in unusual numbers, animals leaving low ground. Even the smell in the air could warn that rain was approaching. No single clue was perfect, but together, those clues gave a skilled observer time to act. And a few hours of warning could change everything. It meant gathering dry wood before the storm arrived, moving children and supplies uphill, repairing the shelter, covering the food, strengthening the roof. The smartest way to survive rain wasn't to react faster, it was to prepare earlier. Clothing was another essential piece of the system. Raw animal skin wasn't automatically a comfortable jacket. It could become stiff, heavy, and unpleasant as it dried. Turning it into something useful required work. The hide had to be cleaned, scraped, stretched, softened, and treated. Fat, smoke, and other natural materials helped preserve it and improve its resistance to moisture. This process took patience. An animal killed today might provide protection days or weeks later. That required planning ahead. It meant solving a future problem before the rain, wind, or cold arrived. Prepared hides could cover the body, line shelters, protect sleeping areas, and wrap supplies. Combined with fire and good construction, they created a dry pocket inside a wet world. But no technology made ancient humans completely independent. Their greatest survival advantage was the group. One person could gather fuel while another repaired the roof. Someone could watch the fire while others searched for food. Experienced adults could judge whether the group should move, while younger members handled the hardest physical work. At night, people could sleep close together and share body heat. Children could be kept near the center, protected from the coldest air. Privacy wasn't the priority, survival was. This also explains why knowledge was so valuable. An experienced elder might know which bark carried an ember longest, which hill stayed dry after days of rain, which plants remained edible when everything else had rotted, or which cloud pattern meant a violent storm was coming. Losing that person meant losing years of information. Ancient survival knowledge wasn't stored in books or online videos. It lived inside human memory. It had to be demonstrated, practiced, and passed from one generation to the next. Then there was food. Rain made hunting more difficult, but it also changed the menu. Some animals became harder to find. Dry seeds could spoil, and stored food could grow mold if it wasn't protected. At the same time, wet conditions brought other opportunities. Fish moved through swollen streams. Frogs, snails, insects, worms, mushrooms, and moisture-loving plants became easier to locate. Ancient humans survived because they were flexible. They didn't demand the same meal every day. They followed what the environment offered. They also prepared for difficult periods by drying, smoking, hiding, or storing food when resources were abundant. During lean days, sharing kept the entire group functioning. A selfish individual might eat well for one night. A cooperative group could survive the whole season. And that's the part we often miss. Ancient people didn't defeat rain through strength alone. They survived because dozens of small solutions worked together. A protected ember, a sloped roof, a treated hide, a carefully chosen campsite, a warning noticed in the sky, food saved from an earlier season, warm bodies gathered around one fire. None of these things looks dramatic by itself, but together they formed a technology of survival. Today, we have weather forecasts, waterproof fabrics, insulated homes, storm drains, and heating systems. Rain usually changes our plans, not our chances of staying alive. But every modern solution began with the same basic observations our ancestors made. Water flows downhill.
Wet bodies lose heat. Layered materials shed rain. Fire must be protected. Preparation beats panic. and humans are stronger together than they are alone. Ancient people weren't helpless figures hiding from nature. They were builders, observers, teachers, and problem solvers. They studied their world because ignoring it wasn't an option. The rain kept falling, so they kept learning. And because they did, we're here.